El Mencho had the upper hand over everyone in Mexico, from small-time officers to high-ranking politicians.
And all that violence is only to have leverage in the negotiations with the government, with politicians, right? They create these candidates to go and sit with a local politician and say, like, okay, do you want more, or shall we negotiate this stuff?
Everyone knew the CJNG is in control of the government, not the other way around. Now, it seems like Mencho's bloated empire is coming to a brutal end, as he is getting a taste of his own bitter medicine. His family is getting arrested at an alarming rate, and rumors of Mencho's serious health issues are piling up. Is this the end of the brutal CJNG? Let's explore. It was August 2016, and two Chapados were celebrating a birthday. Ivan Guzman, age 35, and his 29-year-old brother Jesus had spent the entire week indulging in the pleasures of the resort city. As Sunday, the eve of Ivan's 36th birthday unfolded, they secured a reservation at the prestigious La Leche restaurant for their celebratory gathering. There was no question about it. El Chapo's sons could get a reservation anywhere in Mexico. Accompanied by 6 men and 9 women, all dressed impeccably, they occupied a grand candlelit table at the heart of the immaculately white room. Champagne flowed as they joyfully serenaded Ivan with happy birthday. As the night drew to a close, though, their festivities were abruptly interrupted when 6 armed men, wielding assault rifles, barged in a swift and calculated move. One of the assailants forced Ivan to his knees, delivering a vicious blow to his ribs that sent him sprawling to the ground. Jesus Alfredo found himself with a firearm pressed against his temple. Within moments, the brothers and their male companions were forcibly escorted outside to awaiting SUVs, leaving the women unharmed but shaken. The entire ordeal transpired in a matter of minutes, described by the restaurant's owner as violent yet remarkably efficient. And just like that, without a single shot fired, the 2 Sinaloa kingpins were snatched away in the dead of night. Chapo's sons found themselves in hot water by partying in the territory controlled by Sinaloa's newest and fiercest rival, a rising cartel figure known as Ruben Oseguera Cervantes, also known as El Mencho. Besides possibly Rafael Caro Quintero, the notorious Guadalajara drug lord still wanted for the brutal slaying of a DEA agent in 1985, Mencho is arguably the primary focus of America's anti-cartel efforts. As a DEA insider succinctly puts it, it used to be all about Chapo. Now, it's all about Mencho. In just a short span of around 5 years, Mencho's CJNG reached unprecedented heights, achieving in a mere fraction of the time what took Sinaloa a whole generation. This cartel has rapidly expanded its influence, establishing intricate trafficking networks that span dozens of countries across 6 continents, with territorial control extending over half of Mexico, encompassing coastal regions and border areas on both sides of the nation. CJNG's reach is shocking. They even own most of the Michoacan avocado industry. We'll get to that in a bit. A classified intelligence report from Mexican authorities obtained by El Universal newspaper, dubbed CJNG as the most pervasive cartel in the country. Specializing in methamphetamine and later fentanyl, CJNG has strategically targeted lucrative markets in Europe and Asia while maintaining a discreet presence in the United States. This strategic approach has allowed the cartel to amass an enormous war chest, estimated by some experts to be as high as $20 billion. As one former DEA agent, who requested anonymity for safety reasons, points out, these individuals possess substantially greater financial resources than Sinaloa ever did. Another U.S. investigator notes, Mencho's aggressive tactics have proven highly effective thus far, unfortunately, but all that seems to be changing. From 2020, rumors of Mencho's poor health started flooding in, and as of 2024, most of his family is behind bars or questioned by the DEA. Is this the end of the kingpin or just a hiccup, leading to an even bigger fish? We can't talk about El Mencho's fall without talking about his rise.
Tonight, the DEA is offering $10 million for information leading to the arrest of the Mexican kingpin known as El Mencho. He's blamed for a flood of narcotics into the U.S.
El Mencho, real name Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, was born on July 17, 1966, in Michoacan, to a family of poor avocado farmers. Michoacan is Mexico's most avocado-rich region, and this is where the US and Canada get most of their beloved fruit. But Nemesio's parents weren't well off. In fact, they were living hand to mouth, and they didn't see another way for their kids either. Their future was certain: avocado farming. There's another side to the story, and it's crucial to Nemesio's rise to power. From a very young age, he was exposed to cartel violence. A lot of teenagers and avocado farmers in the region were working for cartels to supplement their income. So avocados and violence strangely went hand in hand for him. When he was in 5th grade, Nemesio left school and got a job looking after avocado fields. However, these fields weren't owned by his family or any ordinary people. They were the property of the Milenio Cartel, which was one of the most powerful Mexican cartels at the time. For the Milenio Cartel, the avocado trade was profitable in itself, as they often extorted farmers and seized control of their money. This is relevant. Mencho would do the very same later. However, avocado farming was also a front for trafficking weed, which they were hiding in the fruit carts going into the States. Nemesio was still a young teen when he became involved with smuggling for the Milenio. This would become the breeding ground for his notorious drug empire, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel.
The economical power behind the Cartel Jalisco, they literally started with avocados, so they were farmers. They literally started moving from avocados to chemical precursors to make drugs like methamphetamine. It's like, okay, so what the US market like? They like their avocados from Mexico and their meth from Mexico.
Aged 18 or 19, Nemesio illegally moved to Northern California, hoping to make more money. It wasn't long before he started selling heroin and meth, but he was arrested twice, within 4 years, and the second time, he was deported back to Michoacan, together with his brother Abraham. Interestingly enough, before the arrest, Nemesio warned Abraham that a certain deal was a setup. Nemesio had an eye for these sorts of things, but as Abraham insisted on carrying on, the two got arrested. In his mid-20s, Nemesio was out of prison, had a new nickname, El Mencho, and back with the Milenio Cartel. Except now, a new cartel was dominating Michoacan, and they were more brutal than anyone before them. Their name was Los Zetas. They were an offshoot from the Gulf Cartel, and they were now butchering Gulf sicarios during one of the bloodiest cartel wars in Mexico's history.
They burn these individuals in a 55-gallon drum using diesel because diesel burns slower. They've had people's heads cut off, thrown into a disco.
They also awarded medals of honor to the most brutal soldiers and encouraged unspeakable torture over quick deaths. Mencho found this inspiring.
So what you saw was a change in the way cartels fought with violence. It was no longer those gang members with shaved heads and tattoos fighting with pistols and knives. It was militarized style, fighting like military units. And once they did it, this was spread across to every cartel in Mexico.
Amidst the conflict between Los Zetas and the Milenio Cartel, El Mencho made a strategic move to Guadalajara, where he struck a deal with El Chapo. During the late 2000s, El Mencho assumed control of Sinaloa cartel operations in Colima and Jalisco. In 2009, the Milenio Cartel suffered a huge crush following the arrest of its leaders. Seizing the opportunity, El Mencho asserted himself as the new leader of the Milenio Cartel, sparking a heated debate among contenders vying for the title of kingpin. The Milenio Cartel thus splintered into two rival factions, La Resistencia, or the Resistance, and Los Mata Zetas, the Zeta Killers. Mencho was the Zeta Killer. To say El Mencho fought dirty would be an understatement. Of course, no one in the cartel world fights clean, but he took it all to another level. He started a smear campaign against La Resistencia and turned a lot of its members in for extortion. Slowly but surely, La Resistencia was decimated either by brute force or by the police, with information from Mencho. Within a year, El Mencho was the last one standing. By 2010, the Zeta Killers had turned into the CJNG.
The Milenio Cartel splintered over, and one of those splinters was Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, the CJNG.
Within a few years, the CJNG went from being a small territorial expansion to one of the leading criminal organizations in the country. El Mencho did this through sheer intimidation, not bribery like Pablo Escobar or El Chapo. Not that these two men did not personally torture people too. It's just that Mencho did more of that, and less of the other stuff. And he'd learned this from his enemies Los Zetas. Also, paramilitary uniforms and weapons intimidate rival cartels and the police force.
And in July, footage would emerge of that CJNG convoy. These gunmen call themselves the elite group and pledge allegiance to El Mencho.
They have a very intelligent strategy, which is basically branding themselves and looking like paramilitary power. They do have their full letters, right? The CJNG on their vests. They dressed as properly military. They also have these high caliber guns. They have what they call those monstros, which are really basically what man-made tanks, you know.
Mencho employed the very worst people. Violent, power-hungry men who take pleasure in hurting others. His armies terrorize officers and civilians, and his men are more like a pack of rabid dogs, jumping at anyone who looks at them the wrong way. At one point, El Mencho had an army of evil clowns who flayed their enemies alive. Honestly, it doesn't get much worse than CJNG employees. By 2017, Mencho was Mexico's #1 enemy, and on the DEA's most wanted list.
Tonight, the DEA is offering $10 million for information leading to the arrest of the Mexican drug kingpin known as El Mencho. He's blamed for a flood of narcotics into the U.S.
At this point, he had so much money. He had military equipment just as advanced as the Mexican armies.
The latest cartel target, Mexico's military. The Jalisco New Generation cartel took the fight to the next level, shooting down a military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade.
Known by their Spanish acronym CJNG, they are equipped with military weaponry, grenade launchers, drones that drop bombs. They're using booby traps, landmines, and these homemade armored trucks called monsters.
And indeed, he was going after the army itself.
¿Un dron o qué? ¿Dónde está el dron?
Está volando derecho arriba.
Hay un dron.
And when he had it all, Mencho was still unsatisfied. He went to his home state of Michoacan and preyed upon the avocado industry. The CJNG extorts the poor farmers of Michoacan and sends death threats to their families until they freely offer their farms and earnings to the CJNG. Mencho simply followed the trend again. The demand for avocados saw a huge surge in the US, so he infiltrated the farming business in Michoacan. Thousands of innocent farmers and their families died because of it.
In Michoacan, the avocado industry, first they start like taxing them with like 10% of their gains, and then they say like, why it's not easier just to take over? Give me like the property titles, or I will kidnap your daughter. I will extort you. If you don't, I'm gonna shoot you.
Before long, Michoacan looked like a giant crime scene. Dead bodies hung from bridges. Others were left on the side of the road without a head. This is what kids saw on their way to school. In a horrible way, the cycle repeats. Nemesio Cervantes was once exposed to the cartel horrors as a young kid. Desperate to escape his family's poverty, he joined the cartel's ranks, already desensitized to violence and thinking this is the only way to get rich. What he's doing is sadly inspiring other young boys to take his path in life. Meanwhile, he's furthering a disgusting propaganda through his sicarios. The CJNG claims they don't do all the nasty things other cartels do. Instead, they're just cleaning the world from scum like them.
What was previously happening is that the Viagras would store the avocado producers. If people didn't pay up, they got killed. The Jalisco cartel is a cartel that doesn't kidnap. The Jalisco cartel doesn't church quotas. The Jalisco cartel doesn't extort, doesn't steal. On the contrary, what we do is clean up society from all those people.
Tragically, they do all of the above and worse, and they're making billions off of it. But their heroic discourse is meant to attract young, vulnerable kids from impoverished backgrounds and keep locals vouching for them. supporting their businesses instead of Sinaloa and other rival cartels. It's just like Pablo Escobar's humanitarian discourse, manipulating millions in the 1990s. Sadly, people still fall for this today. But what goes up must come down. And starting in 2020, Mencho's horrible empire has suffered several blows.
Judy, this is the story of like father, like son. The men oversee Mexico's most feared new generation cartel, according to law enforcement, that controls the vast majority of illicit sold in Metro Chicago. Tonight, the man they call El Mencho is still a fugitive, but his son, the so-called Menchito, has just been extradited from Mexico to face U.S. prosecution.
Ruben Oseguera Gonzalez was extradited in February 2020 when he was 29 on drug and machine gun trafficking charges. According to the DEA, Menchito was only second in command to his dad. Much like Chapo's sons, he was a trusted right-hand man and commander in the CJNG, groomed from a young age by his monster dad. To this day, there is a $10 million reward for any clues leading to El Mencho's arrest. He is wanted for murder, kidnapping, racketeering, and of course, running one of the most powerful empires in the world.
Based on the reward that's out for him, he is a prime DEA target.
Well, there's no doubt about that because he leads one of the most powerful cartels in Mexico, and he's important for us to look at and look at hard.
However, DEA agent Bob Bell said even Mencho's son is a huge blow to the CJNG. From a U.S. prison, Menchito won't be able to help his dad run his empire.
Taking off one or two, even significant targets makes a difference, but to really impact the organizations, we need to treat these transnational criminal organizations the same way we treat trafficking organizations and completely dismantle those organizations.
Shortly after, there was this news.
We can take the fight to one of the largest and most dangerous cartels on the planet.
In 2020, 250 CJNG employees were arrested by the DEA. That's right, 250. And around the same time, Mencho's daughter, Jessica, was also arrested on money laundering charges. On June 11, 2021, she was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for her role in the CJNG. On March 14, 2022, she was released early on good behavior. She owned J&P Advertising, SA de CV, and JJ Gone SPRDRL de CV, both of which had been designated by the Office of Foreign Assets Control. She also held roles as an officer, director or agent with Las Flores Cabanas, Mizu Sushi Lounge, Tequila Onze Black, and Operadora Los Famosos, SA de CV, which functioned as Kenzo Sushi. The Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control found that the companies had been linked with the Jalisco New Generation Cartel's transnational drug trafficking ventures. Kingpins like Mencho rely on their most trusted ones to launder money for them. That's the easiest way. Open businesses that look legit enough and use them to launder the endless stream of blowed money coming in. Thankfully, the DEA and other authorities know this, so they'd been keeping an eye on Mencho's family for a long time. Now, his son is in prison for a long time, and his daughter, although released, can't think of laundering money anymore. She knows she's being supervised 24/7 by authorities in both Mexico and the US. After her release, she told the judge, "This has been one of the hardest experiences of my life. I have been separated from my children. I had never been separated. That is why I apologize, and without a doubt, I regret everything I have done that could have caused some damage. I ask your honor to have mercy on my sentence. I know I have made a mistake, but I have learned from it, and I will never repeat it as a mother. I ask for a second chance." And this was not the end of the DEA's blows to the CJNG.
Y lo van a traer a los Estados Unidos. También lo va a pasar a él lo que pasó al Chapo. Va a tomar su vida en una prisión aquí.
In December 2022, The Guardian announced the arrest of Mencho's brother Antonio Oseguera Cervantes, brother of the Jalisco New Generation cartel boss known as El Mencho, was arrested on Tuesday in the state of Jalisco by the Mexican Army, working with the National Guard, the Attorney General's office, and the National Intelligence Agency. According to the military, Oseguera was involved in money laundering, purchasing large quantities of weapons and coordinating violent attacks against rival groups, as well as international drug trafficking. The arrest represents a forceful blow to one of the criminal organizations in the country, since he is considered within its structure as one of the alleged main logistical and financial operators and generators of violence, the Mexican military said in a statement. In April 2024, another headline announced the imminent demise of Mencho. His other brother, Abraham, was arrested in Michoacán. Over the past 5 years, López Obrador has sought a less confrontational approach to Mexico's raging gangland violence, arguing that the priority should be placed on root causes of crime, like poverty and joblessness, versus direct attacks on the cartels. Abraham Oseguera, also known as Don Rodo, was detained on Sunday by Army soldiers working with National Guard police in Outland de Navarro, Jalisco. According to a statement from the Defense Ministry released later on Monday, the statement added that the detainee, found with a couple of firearms plus ammunition cartridges, is considered one of the cartel's main logistics and financial leaders, coordinating both drug trafficking and sales in the area where he was arrested. He was later transferred by the country's Air Force to Mexico City. Indeed, Abraham, aka Don Rodo, was one of the CJNG's most trusted commanders, so his arrest comes as a huge blow to Mencho's organization. His family is dropping like flies. 4 of his immediate relatives getting arrested in a span of 4 years is a lot. These might be his most trusted soldiers. Kingpins are notoriously paranoid. They have made tons of enemies to get to the top of the cartel world, so a lot of people want them gone. Also, cartels are a dog-eat-dog world, and just as he betrayed many to rise to power, many will want to betray him. That's why kingpins tend to not trust anyone outside their family, so it's safe to say Mencho is slowly losing his right-hand people, and he can't get new ones that easily. Then, there is one final rumor, one which might announce the final fall of the notorious CJNG. In late 2020, it was reported that Mencho suffers from kidney disease and had built his very own hospital in a village called El Altihuatl to help treat it. By December 2023, reports came that he had in fact suffered kidney failure. This means that he is confined to his home hospital and relies on others to rule over his cartel. In February 2022, even darker unconfirmed rumors popped up in Colima. Jose Bernabe Brizuela Meraz, alias La Vaca, and his cartel in Colima left several narcomantas messages. Banners all around the city spoke of El Mencho being dead. La Vaca used to be a serious Mencho loyalist, but believing he was dead, he deserted the cartel. And when drug lords begin to quit work, it means they no longer trust the big cartels.
So with all the rumors around El Mencho being dead or very ill or out of the cartel, that started, I guess they started like around 2020 when we started reading about El Mencho being out of the cartel Jalisco. I reached out to 2 middle range commanders inside the cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación. One of them believed that he was just literally just out of the cartel. He's well, he's alive, he's just like stepped up or stepped out of the cartel. And the other guy believes that El Mencho is actually pretty ill or might even be dead.
The $10 million reward for Mencho's arrest still stands. This means that, despite their research, the DEA did not confirm any of these rumors. It's likely Mencho is alive, hiding in his usual mountain hideouts, and struggling to rule his cartel amidst health issues. However, it's easy to see how he doesn't hold the power he did 7 years ago. While the CJNG is still considered one of Mexico's most brutal cartels, its top commanders are getting arrested one by one, and without his family by his side, a sick Mencho could only hold down the fort for so long. It might not be long until he himself is arrested or unalived by a rival cartel member. But would an end to the CJNG mean an end to violence in Mexico? Hey, thanks for tuning in. What are your thoughts on El Mencho's situation? Do you think a criminal organization as big as the CJNG can crumble?